You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, November 13th. We've got some big, huge news to talk about. The 49ers made a big deal, a big extension with the star cornerback. But first, before we get into all the deets with that, we've got Rob joining us today. Rob, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Steph. I'm in a good move after that extension last night. Like, I'm just happy right now. They've won 2 straight. They locked in Deommodore Lenoir. Like, vibe check. Vibes are pretty good.
This is a big contrast from what we got from you last week, which was cranky Rob. This week, the vibes are high, and yeah, for good reason. I mean, like I said, the 49ers lock in Deommodore Lenoir to a 5-year, $92 million extension. This is one of those rare in-season extensions for the 49ers. They've done it before, but I don't think we were expecting Lenoir to be on the list for a mid-season extension. But I know you might have probably been on Twitter, Rob, when this happened. Did you see all of the reactions come in real time from everyone as we get this news? Like, everyone was pumped and excited about this.
So I saw that tweet from Jeremy Fowler and I ran downstairs. I was like, we got to do a live show. And it was one of the hardest live shows I've ever done because it was like, hey, this is a really good move. Good job. And then I didn't know what else to say. Like, nobody has criticized this move. Grant Cohn didn't criticize the move. Like, no one. He's a young player. He's an ascending player. The contract is reasonable right now. It's going to age like wine. It's only going to look more reasonable as the market resets itself, as new guys get deals. This is a fantastic move. This is like the Dre Greenlaw contract from a couple years ago. It was just like nobody knew it was happening, and then boom, here it is, and we can all celebrate.
Which the Drake Greenlaw one also was in season, so it was a surprise as well. And apparently the 49ers have been working on this deal for some months now with Lenoir. I recall at some point in the off season, right? I think it was Lenoir himself. I believe he was on Kay Adams' show, and he was asked about, potentially getting a deal done with the 49ers or something to that effect. I think, if I'm recalling correctly. And he pretty much said, he's kind of betting on himself, or he's just waiting. Well, I think it was a great move by him to, 1, bet on himself, and 2, obviously a really good move for the 49ers to not wait till the end of the season, because I think the asking price would have probably gone way up by the time that we're into August, June, all that, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is a really great decision to get it done when they did, to get it done for a player who's excelling, who's improved every season that he's been with this team. 2022 was his first year as a starter, and as we're showing here, you kind of see the progression of his career. I mean, his past breakups were in week 11, 10. And his past breakups, highest it's ever been. He has 2 interceptions this season. His passer rating that he allows is at 65. Yards per reception, lowest it's ever been at 9.9. I mean, this is just a no-brainer. The easiest decision I can think the 49ers have made. And someone else said probably the easiest decision the 49ers have made since picking Nick Bosa at number 2 overall. I mean, it's up there with one of their best decisions, I think.
And you know what else I like about it? Is he's got that swagger, right? He's got that dog in him that everybody likes to talk about. He's got attitude and charisma and just like, I'm better than you. We're the big bad 49ers. And I think they've lost a lot of that over the years as the team has gone through. Richard Sherman had that. Certain guys that have been in San Francisco have had it, and they've lost some of them just through the natural course of, season to season. I like that they have this guy locked in. He's going to be one of the guys setting the culture in the next 2, 3, 4 years of this new 49er core. And I like that he's a guy with some swag and some attitude, especially on defense. I do think you have to have that.
Not just setting the culture, Rob, but setting the tone. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. He is a tone setter for this defense. And I think it's become clear that Lenoir is that guy right now, and he's blossomed even more so into that role because they don't have Drake Greenlaw, who is also very similar, also a tone setter for that defense. And if the 49ers can lock up both of these guys for, as long as they could, 4 or 5 years. Remember, Drake Greenlaw also an unrestricted free agent after this season. So if they could get something worked out for him as well, I'm going to feel very great about this defense going forward, just because those are your cornerstones, right? You have Fred as well, Nick Bosa. Those are your cornerstones. You can build whatever else around that because those are the guys that are going to set the expectation and the culture for this team, the standard. And one of the reasons as well, like I said, that I think the 49ers were so smart to get this done when they did. I mean, he's having an all-pro season, right? I mean, I think we expected it going into the season, off season. He was buzzing at training camp, right? Having one of his best training camps so far in 2024. He has 53 tackles, 2 interceptions, 6 passes defended, a forced fumble, 35 receptions on 56 targets allowed, 346 receiving yards allowed, still no touchdowns allowed in his coverage, and 35.7 passer rating against. And that is the 3rd best among corners with at least 20 targets this season. I can't help but think, Rob, that if he hit the open market this offseason, he'd be gone, because I don't think there's any way the 49ers could really keep up with his market with what he's been doing so far. You're on mute.
That's why I'm kind of surprised, frankly, that he did sign, because if I was his agent, you have to balance it. What I would tell him is, look, if you're comfortable taking the risk for the rest of this season, you're going to get a huge payday. Now, maybe he's like, look, I was a 5th round draft pick, man. I'm lucky to get to this point without getting seriously hurt. And maybe that's why he wanted to take the deal. Who knows? But it works out for the 49ers. And it's just like another young player that's locked up. If you would be so kind, if you could click in the little screen that I'm trying to share at the bottom. This is what I shared on my show with Grant today. The 49ers already have kind of like their next core group of people. There's 7 players, 25 or under, that already look like they are ascending, number one. And number 2, are good players now, immediately. Brock, Ricky Pearsall, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, Deommodore Lenoir, and Renardo Green. All of those guys look like they can play, and they're going to be here. And that's incredible that the 49ers are going to be able to go from the core of CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle to now this new core and really not have too many down years in between. Maybe they missed the playoffs this year. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Somebody on this show picked them to go 2-6 in their final 8 games, and I know it wasn't me. But it's incredible that they're building this thing up again.
Yeah, it is. And this move gives me so much more confidence in that, right? Why can't next year also be a potential contending year for this team? Why not? I mean, you have the foundational pieces, and sure, there's some areas where they need to cut costs, but as your graphic here shows, and for the audio listeners, or you mentioned most of them, right? Yeah, you mentioned them. So we've got this list of players here that they're the future of this team. So, and they're all in some key areas of this team, right? Obviously quarterback, huge. Offensive line, everyone's been clamoring for a better offensive line. Well, Pooney's the first step of getting new puzzle pieces in there. Lenoir, I mean, this secondary looks incredible. I can't even believe that Lenoir's just 25, because he's already been in the league for a few years now. And I don't know, that just makes it even more of a no-brainer move, because I think it's easy to say, he hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. He could continue to get better, more savvy in being a corner, and we've seen the improvement each and every year. So yeah, just another no-brainer move for the 49ers. And another thing I wanted to point out, like I said, career highs. He's on pace to have career highs in interceptions, pass breakups, tackles, completion percentage allowed, passer rating, when targeted. He's just getting better and better. And one thing I want to do, Rob, is compare his deal to other corners throughout the league with the average per year, right? We don't have the final numbers, which tell us everything, usually, and that can clear up some things. But as of right now, the numbers we do have, 5 years, 18.4 million, that would put him at 18.4 million average per year, right? So with that would make him 12th highest in average per year with all these other guys ahead of him. How is it that a deal gets done and within minutes it looks like a steal?
Because I remember this. Mike Florio said this once when I was working with him at NBC. It's one thing to hear about these numbers, that are out there, right? It's another thing when someone literally has a piece of paper in front of you that says $92 million and you see 92,000,000. And all you have to do is write your name on that piece of paper and you get that money. That money becomes real to you. It goes from a thing that's just kind of floating like an abstract idea and it becomes concrete. It becomes sign your name on this piece of paper and you can go and buy 5 cars right now. That's a powerful thing, especially for somebody who, like we said, is a 5th round draft pick who has not been playing on that big money deal. Is this contract the maximum he would have gotten if he hit the open market? Hell no. But it's still a ton of money. And I could see Deommodore Lenoir looking at it like, you know what? I play a super violent game. Yeah, I might make 5, 6, 7 million more a year if I were to hit the open market, but I'll just take this deal. I'll make a ton of money. I'll be richer than I've ever been in my life. And I eliminate all that risk. And by the way, he just saw Brandon Ayuk go down less than 5 games after signing his deal. So I get it from Lenoir's perspective. This is one of those rare deals that just is a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, and I think obviously for this deal to take place and happen when it did and how it did, I think the player has to want that, right? And so it's clear that Lenoir wanted to stay in San Francisco and willing to take less money and take that deal now in order to do that. So this is big, right? For the 49ers to have gotten him 2021 5th round, right? Just another 5th round gem for this 49ers team, homegrown player. You're going to see him next season next to Bernardo Green, also, homegrown. He'll be in his 2nd year. So again, this secondary is pretty much locked up for the foreseeable future. And that's really, really big news for this team. Now, as I mentioned, the unrestricted free agents that remain for 2025, cornerback Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward, linebacker Dre Greenlaw, safety Talanoa Hufanga, and offensive guard Aaron Banks. So they got some decisions, and some of these could be had, I think, at a bargain. And I think one that makes sense if you want to get it done mid-season too would be Dre Greenlaw. As I wouldn't hesitate too much on getting Dre Greenlaw done, just because he's coming off this injury. If you know that he's looking almost like himself, I know it takes a while, but if he looks like the same guy before, or you feel strongly that he will be that same guy, I'd get that done, and you could probably get it done at a discount if the sooner you get it done. What do you think?
I think the only difficult decision on this list is Dre Greenlaw. Everybody else, thanks for everything you've done. Good luck moving on in the future. And I say that, I don't mean to be crass, because obviously Mooney Ward is dealing with a horrible, tragic situation that's totally separate. But you signed Lenoir for a reason. The choice was Lenoir or Ward. The 49ers made their choice. You're not signing both of those guys. So he's going to be on a new team next year. Talanoa Hufanga, no thank you. He has not looked the same since his injury, and he can't stay healthy. You've got Jair Brown. You've got Malik Mustafa. Your safeties are set. Aaron Banks, yeah, thank you. You're not the type of player we pay. You're like a Mike McGlinchey type player. You're good enough to start while you're here, but you're not good enough with the level of play that you've given us for us to have to pay you a market rate. So you can go shuffle off to Denver or wherever the hell you're going to go. and we'll get a new guard in here. Maybe Spencer Burford will take over at left guard next year. Who knows? The only difficult decision is Drake Greenlaw, and only because of the injury. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I did really like Jay's suggestion on Bully Ball yesterday, which was, Spencer Burford taking over at left guard in the future and extending him instead of Banks, because I do think Banks probably in line to get a pretty nice deal, right? This offseason, as well as most offensive linemen do, as long as you're average, right? So, Drake Greenlaw to me is the no-brainer. Like we said, him being another tone setter, culture setter for this defense, in my opinion, that's someone you need. And it tricky, of course, because he's coming off the injury, but that would be one I wouldn't hesitate on too much. But this is looking pretty good. And obviously we know Brock Purdy is in line to get paid this offseason as well. So that'll muddy up some things and some of these negotiations they might want to do. But getting Lenoir done, like I said, just that alleviates a lot of pressure for me, because I was getting increasingly afraid they would not get it done in the offseason because he was pricing himself out, basically, for what the 49ers would be able to afford. And now we don't have to worry about that. So I just feel like a huge weight is lifted off of this fan base and probably the organization as well, shoulders, for having gotten this done when they did.
Steph, what are we going to do in the offseason as content creators? We're going to have one thing to talk about. It's going to be Brock Purdy's deal, which, maybe that'll get done sooner rather than later too. Credit to John Lynch for locking this down in the middle of the year. They don't have to worry about it now. It's it. It's just cross that off your offseason to-do list. They can get deals done before August and September. Imagine that.
Yeah, and we're very happy about it. Like I said, they've done it before. It's just super, super rare for it to take place. And this is one we're all super pumped about. So I know he's going to be pumped for that game on Sunday against Seattle. And I'm sure we all are as well, because the 49ers have an opportunity to do some good things going forward. They've already won 2 in a row. The small wins, right? Like we'll take what we can get from this team. But Rob, after having watched this team play the way they did against the Bucs, what was kind of like your assessment of it all? Because I think we all kind of know it didn't look as good as we expected or wanted it to. However, they still got the win, right?
That's the thing I'm amazed at. I'm amazed at the amount of anger that's been out there this week, despite the win. And I get it. Like all the bad stuff showed up again after the bye. All the stuff you were hoping would get worked out, it was all there. Bad special teams play, not being able to finish in the red zone, all of that stuff we saw. But the Niners still won the game. The kicker missed 3 kicks, and you still won the game. It's not pretty. It's not perfect. If you were waiting for the 49ers to get back to the 2023 level, forget that. It's never coming back. 2023 was a special, special team. They're not that this year. And they're just not going to be. They're not as good, period, end of discussion. But they don't have to be as good as 2023 to win the Super Bowl. You just have to get into the playoffs and get hot at the right time. And they can't get into the playoffs unless they win games like this. They're one step closer to where they want to be. I get that it wasn't perfect. But, dude, if I can't be happy after the wins, I'm just going to be miserable for the next 8 weeks. And I don't want to be that.
Yeah, I do want to be happy after a win. So, again, like while it didn't look the way we wanted it to, there's still a lot to improve, to clean up. And you can say that about a lot of teams, right? I remember even the 2023 version of the 49ers, we were talking about things that they needed to improve on, right? How many weeks in a row did we talk about defense and missed tackles and things like that, penalties? And so every team has its issues. But what you need to do, even if you do have issues, is win games. That's what it's all about. It's what it all comes down to. And the 49ers, at least in the last 2, have won. Now we know it gets tougher from here on out, a hell of a lot tougher for them. But if they can build some momentum while cleaning up some of their issues, if they could, then that can help go a long way. And I do want to talk about just the way things are looking in the NFC right now, because, well, That's the 49ers have some competition. And so far, the NFC West has kind of been more or less neck and neck, I would say. Definitely not as like one-sided or two-sided as it has been in the past. So Cardinals 6-4, 49ers 5-4, because the Rams lost on Monday night. The Rams now 4-5. 49ers stay in that second place spot, which is huge, right? And then they play the Seahawks on Sunday, who are sitting at 4-5 as well. And so there's a lot of moves that could happen from week in and week out. Like we see this fluctuate every week, right? But the reason that it's so important for the 49ers right now is because when you look at the playoff picture, maybe this is surprising, maybe it's not. The 49ers are well within striking distance of being a wild card team right now. And like we say, like you just need to get in the dance and anything can happen. Every team is, 0-0 once you get in the playoffs, right? That's what people say. So there's some reason for optimism.
The easiest road to the playoffs is clearly the division for the 49ers because you have to be better than the Cardinals, Rams, and Seahawks. When you're talking about a wild card in the NFC, you're competing with the Commanders, who are 7-3 right now, and the Vikings, who are 7-2, although let's just be real about the Vikings. Who's leading the NFL in turnovers right now at the quarterback position? Just take a guess, Steph.
I think I saw that he had, and we're talking about Sam Darnold here, he's had 5 interceptions in the last 2 games.
Yep, against the Colts and the Jags. Ooh. He can't play dead in a cowboy movie. I tried to tell everybody. Nobody wanted to hear it. So they may fall off. But if you're the Niners, the division is definitely in your grasp, and that should be your number one target. Don't look at it right now as like, well, we could sneak into the World Cup. Forget all that. Win your division, be one of the top 4 seeds, guarantee yourself a home playoff game, and let's go. And you could easily do it. Easily. The Rams, that loss to the Rams to Miami was a big deal. Every loss that any division opponent can get is big, but it puts them a game behind the 49ers. You got a game against Arizona to close out the year in Arizona. Don't love that, but you handle your business if you're the 49ers. This game, Seattle on Sunday, you got to stomp them. You've already beat them once. They've never beaten you since Russell Wilson has left Seattle. Geno Smith has never beaten you. He stinks. Handle your business. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and the Niners are 6-4 and you're like, you know what? They start to go from like this team that's been kind of in the mix to, Niners are starting to separate themselves. Like, here come the Niners again.
I don't know if I agree that the 49ers can do it easily, right? Because I think when you look at the rest of their schedule, I'm not as optimistic about how the second half of their schedule is going to go for them. But it's not just that. It's not just the fact that you have to win your games. It's the fact that you need that plus other teams have to lose, right? So I know when we're talking about some of these other teams falling out of favor a little bit, Vikings definitely have looked a little vulnerable as of late. Commanders, still a young team. Packers also kind of just they've lost some steam. The steam that they had early on in the season has fizzled out a little bit. So anything can happen there. And by the way, a lot of big divisional matchups happening this week. Like we already talked about 49ers Seahawks, but Commanders and the Eagles also playing this week, Thursday Night Football. That's going to be a great matchup. You also have the Packers and Bears playing against each other this week. So this week alone, there could be a lot of movement, but I'm hesitant to say it could be easy for the 49ers because there's just so many variables that need to go the 49ers way. And they have in the past, but can it happen 2 seasons in a row? I don't know. But certainly the fact that they're in the hunt, a game behind the Packers spot, that's big.
Let's go. Come on. You can make this chart. Kyle Shanahan wins 70% of his games after the bye. And nobody before last week.
On to that.
Well, nobody before last week was saying, yeah, but how many of those are 1-score games? How many should they have lost? How many field goals did they miss in those games? We don't care, right? He won the games. And that's exactly what they did Sunday. They won the damn game. Survive and advance. That's where we are.
that's where we are. That's where the 49ers have put themselves. I've speculated that they enjoy putting themselves in this position because I think they like to get themselves out of it and feel great about themselves. Corey has a super chat here. Corey, thank you. He says, rather than happy or unhappy, I'd rather be objective if it's possible. Objectively, this team kind of sucks. Love them, but kind of suck. Beat Seattle or no division. I mean, that's where I'm at with this team, right? Like right now, they kind of suck, but they suck, but they're winning games, so that's an improvement from earlier in the season, right? They've won the last two, and I think I always say with the caveat that if they improve on things, then they could be better, like obviously, right? And then we would say objectively, this team could be something. This team is okay. This team is good.
They don't suck. Like they've outgained opponents by almost 1,000 yards this year, 979 yards. That's more than 100 yards per game. Okay, that would be the third highest in the NFL in the last 14 years. They don't suck. They definitely have things they have to improve on. But that's why it's been so frustrating because they do so many good things and then they just shoot themselves in the foot. And that's why it feels like they're not very good when in reality, like if they just got a little better, if they were one red zone touchdown better a game, just one, they would look so much better. You would feel so much differently about this team if they just scored on one more red zone opportunity per game. Because they get there constantly. They kicked 6 field goals last week. Like they are motoring up and down the field. Even if you change nothing about the offense and you keep all the red zone failures last week, if Jake Moody is just an average NFL kicker last week, they scored 32 points. 32 points. So they're not far away. They just got to find a way to squeeze that extra drop out of the orange to get there.
Yeah, I agree. I think our perception of them is skewed by what they were, what they have been. So when you compare them to 2023 version, the season before that, even, I think you come to the conclusion that they suck because just in comparison, like, right. But I think you're right. Like they aren't actually that bad, and they're certainly not as bad as their record would suggest, but they have shot themselves in the foot. That's why we're where we are today. But every game from here on out is important. So this part that Corey says, beat Seattle or no division, like that could very well be the scenario. But you know what? If the 49ers win on Sunday, they could effectively knock out Seattle in any chance they have of making the division as well. So like I said, huge implications for this game and pretty much every game going forward for the 49ers. And Corey, with a response to you with another super chat here, Rob, they do suck. You're grasping. If I weren't a fan and watched those games, I'd say Niners kind of suck this year.
All right. Like if you think an offense that gets to the red zone almost half the time they have the ball sucks, like, all right. Like again, you see the team how you want to see the team. I'm telling you, I think they're this close to really raising their game to another level. And, some of those seasons where the Niners ended up with a really good record at this point in the season, they were right around 500, exactly where the 49ers are now. Like if they did go on a run and then all of a sudden they end up, with 12-5, I think, yeah, that adds up. 12-5, 11-6, something like that. Are you going to say they suck? No. So I'm just saying, I don't think they suck.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. So we've got some practice report updates from Kyle Shanahan before practice today, and just expected who's going to be participating. So let me get that up here on the screen.
Oh boy!
All right, so we've got a few do not practices, more than a few. We've got George Kittle dealing with hamstring irritation. He's not going to practice today, but he is expected to take part tomorrow, according to Kyle Shanahan. Nick Bosa is still dealing with the hip injury. I mean, he was dealing with that last week as well, played through it. wasn't the best version of himself while playing through it, but the fact that he's resting it throughout the week, hopefully he looks a little bit better going into this game on Sunday. As far as Trent Williams, ankle and wrist, so he's a do not practice, although he usually is off on Wednesdays anyway due to rest. Mitch Wishnowsky is a do not practice. His back has flared up. In fact, the 49ers signed a punter this morning to their practice squad. So that could indicate that, maybe they don't feel so good about his chances playing on Sunday, or at the very least, they need a punter who can who can practice, so they can practice some special teams, because for the love of God, they need to practice special teams. And then Mooney Ward still has not joined the team. As we've mentioned, he could take all the time he needs. Kevin Givens, defensive tackle with the groin, he is do not practice. As far as Christian McCaffrey, there hasn't been any flare-ups after the game on Sunday, which is great news. He's limited today, but it's just part of, the management of bringing him back up to speed. So don't worry about Christian McCaffrey. I thought he looked fine on Sunday. Chris Conley limited, and John Feliciano also limited with the knee injury nearing his return. Any of these concern you a whole lot, Rob?
Well, the Bosa one's concerning because without him, they have zero pass rush, nothing. And the one way that the 49ers really disrupt Geno Smith is with the pass rush. And if you don't get pressure on Geno, he can make some nice throws and hurt you a little bit. So they really need Bosa to find a way. Even if he was just what he was on Sunday, that would be a huge lift for the 49ers defense. That's concerning. Anytime Kyle says he's not concerned about an injury, I get concerned about it. So keep your eye on George Kittle. We'll see. He's been so good for this team. George Kittle has 7 receiving touchdowns. That's the second most in the entire NFL. So he would be a major loss if he couldn't go. Chris Conley, I'll just say this. Take your time, buddy. No rush. Because I feel like Kyle would love to put him back at the 3 as soon as he gets in, because he's a veteran guy and all this crap. Ricky Pearsall looks great. I want to see Jacob Cowing on the field, and that's harder if Chris Conley's there. Just take your time, Chris. Rest up, collect those checks. Really don't rush yourself back. That's all I'll say.
I do think he'll sneak in for a few snaps over Pearsall too, and
which is ridiculous. How good does Ricky Pearsall look? He looks great just 10 weeks ago, and he's roasting fools for 46-yard touchdowns now on the field. He looks incredible. Why would you ever want Chris Conley on the field instead of him? There's no reason for it.
I mean, even blocking has looked pretty good for him so far. So he's coming along really well, and like we've mentioned throughout my show this week, is just he looks better every single week. So you gotta keep building on that. We've talked about how great this 49ers rookie class has been. A big reason why they've looked so great is because they've gotten the snaps. So keep going. And Rob, maybe it's not the best time to tell you that Kyle Shanahan said he wasn't very concerned about George Kittle or Bosa going into this week. But I think for Bosa, it makes sense because he played through it last week. He can only be better this week, right?
I don't know. At one point, I think in the third quarter, he was rushing the passer and he took an absolute shot. Somebody else came over from the opposite side and he just got crunched between two guys and he just laid there on the ground and he was very slow to get up. And I think he missed a few plays after that. He got hammered. He was clearly not himself on Sunday. I mean, he's one of those guys that he could not practice all week and play on Sunday, and I would still feel good about it. So just do what you got to do, Nick. Get in the cold tub, get in the hot tub, get in the sauna, get in the whatever. But we need you.
Yeah, they definitely do, because the pass rush just does not look the same without him. And you want to put some pressure on Geno Smith. You definitely want to have Nick Bosa out there. But all right, let's get to our Way Back Wednesday segment, Rob. Let me just go a few slides back here. So it's been a few weeks since the 49ers last played the Seahawks. But of course, the 49ers won that one. And that improved the all-time record to 30-23. The 49ers have the edge over them there. Did you know, Rob, that the 49ers have won their last 6 against the Seahawks? I used to pray for times like this.
Right. Well, like I said, they haven't beaten the Niners since Russell Wilson left. So it's been a minute since Russ was there in Seattle.
Speaking of Russell Wilson, because I looked back, of course, at the last time that, because this is a rivalry that swings very dramatically. Like, it's not a rivalry where you win one, we win one. It's been like domination for spurts between both teams. So we talked about the fact 49ers have now won their last 6 against the Seahawks, very much dominating the Seahawks as of late. But of course, like we know where that came from. The Seahawks had domination over the 49ers for some years as well. And so I was just looking back at the history of those games and those matchups, and there was a long spurt, of course, of Seattle beating the Niners, even when the Niners were good, right? So this game, January 19th, 2014, 49ers lost. It's actually, I believe, I'm trying to find the page I was looking at, just so many.
It's the NFC Championship game, Steph.
I know it's the NFC Championship game, but I'm trying to remember if this was the end of it was either the beginning of a domination period or the end of one.
It was the end.
But it must have been, right?
They made the Super Bowl they made the Super Bowl in 2012. Then the 2013, they came back and they played in the NFC Championship game that year, which is this game. And this is the Crabtree, Richard Sherman talking trash after that game.
Yeah.
This is the game where the 49ers turned the ball over, Steph, 3 times in the fourth quarter to lose the game. And the thing that I will never get over, ever at the end of when I'm on my deathbed, I'll be thinking about this. Despite all the turnovers, the Niners get the ball back with like 3 minutes left in the game, and they start moving down the field again. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, all right, here we go. We're going to do it. This is unbelievable. In Seattle, finally, we're going to exercise the demons. 1st and 10 from the 18-yard line. And Colin Kaepernick throws it up and it gets intercepted into the end zone. And all I could think about is, dude, why are you forcing a one-on-one ball to Richard Sherman on 1st down? And it wasn't like end of the game. There was like, they had time and they had timeouts. I could not believe that Colin Kaepernick did that. And it gets tipped in the air. It gets intercepted. And to add insult to injury, everybody involved in that play, Crabtree, Sherman, and Malcolm Smith, who actually caught the ball that Sherman tipped, would all end up playing for the 49ers after that.
And actually, because I did find the page where I looked this up on, and actually, Rob, it was not the end of the Seahawks domination. It was one of the many beginnings of it, because if you look here, so here's the game, right, that in question, the NFC Championship game that we're talking about, 2014. Look at how many games in a row the Seahawks won after that over the 49ers.
It was the end of the 49ers run. That's what I was talking about.
No, is that what you meant? Okay. Yeah, because this is like, let me count really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 games in a row the Seahawks won over the 49ers in the course of 4 different seasons. I mean, that hurts. And I'm so sorry I'm doing this right now. I know it's like, I guess I want to highlight good and bad. I don't want to always just pick games where the 49ers won, because that'd be boring, but I guess not boring to us. But
so before Russ left Seattle, the offseason before, I interviewed him, and he was doing hits from Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and he was like, why are you in a bad mood? And I was like, Russ, why am I in a bad mood? You tortured me for a decade. What do you mean, why am I in a bad mood?
You were in a bad mood while interviewing him?
Of course I was.
You didn't even want to do it?
And he's like, whoa, sorry. Because I had all the stuff in the background, and he commented, and he was like, I'm going to send you a jersey. And I was like, Russ, do you think I would ever let that jersey inside my house? I would throw it into the garbage if you ever mailed it to me.
Christ.
Oh, I'll never forget that interview, because it was a Subway interview, and he was autographing the sandwich.
No way.
It's on YouTube. You can watch it. I'll send it to you. And I was like, Russ, he's like, here, have this sandwich. And I was like, Russ, why do you order? I can't eat it now. He's like, oh no, this is edible ink. And I'm like, that's not a thing. You made that up.
What the heck?
Yeah, I interviewed him.
literally signing the bread on the sandwich. Like, I thought maybe the wrapping of the sandwich, you take that off and okay, fine. The actual bread, you couldn't even eat it. And
also, I wasn't in the room. It was a Zoom interview.
Well, he was going to like ship it off to you.
Right. He was like 3,000 miles away.
Unbelievable, man. That just makes me dislike that guy even more. But the good news is Geno Smith, as Corey points out, not prime Russell Wilson. And boy, do we know it. In fact, that's been part of the reason why the 49ers have been dominating the Seahawks as of late. And you know me, Rob, I do expect that to continue on Sunday. Now, the thing is, the Seahawks are coming off of a bye week, right? That's been a narrative for the 49ers this season. They're facing, I think, up to 4 teams coming off a bye week. They've played 2 already, Kansas City and then the Cowboys. So this would now be their 3rd with Seattle. So do you think that makes any difference at all?
No.
I don't.
They seem to have a good beat on Seattle. Debo always has a good game against Seattle. Christian McCaffrey averages almost like 150 yards from scrimmage in his career against Seattle, whether he's with San Francisco or Carolina. Like, doesn't matter. He owns the Seahawks. That with Christian McCaffrey in the fold, they're so much more talented than Seattle is right now. It's not even funny. Plus, we know DK Metcalf's going to have his usual meltdown, like he always does every time they play the 49ers. So they should win. They should. As long as they don't do too many stupid things. We know they're going to do some. As long as they don't do too many, they should
Staying realistic. I like that. Staying realistic. They're going to make some stupid mistakes in this game. There's going to be moments where it feels like they want to keep the Seahawks in it. But ultimately, yes, I do agree. They're going to end up winning this one. So, the special teams can't be that bad 2 weeks in a row, right? Like, there's just no way. Like, in fact, I got to knock on wood to just like make sure that doesn't happen because I'm scared. I'm scared, Rob.
That sounds like a challenge for Brian Schneider. I mean, he's like, oh yeah, hold my beer.
At least they have a different punter because, Mitch Wishnowsky hasn't been the best this year as well.
Here's what it's going to be. Different punter means different holder, right? Because Mitch Wishnowsky is the holder on all the field goals.
Yeah,
that'll be what the special teams error is this week. Because it's always it's like a roulette.
Say that.
It's like a roulette of errors, right? 1 week it's a kick return, 1 week it's a punt return, 1 week it's a block punt, 1 week it's getting got on a fake punt from the other team. This week it's going to be holding issues. Watch.
Why would you bring that into the universe? Like, what are you trying to manifest here?
You're the one that started talking about every game the Niners have ever lost to the Seahawks. So you did this to me, Steph.
But that, I wanted everyone to kind of remember how sweet this moment and this run of wins over Seattle has been, Rob. I just wanted to put it back into perspective in case people forgot.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
I don't think we could ever forget. We have a lot of trauma based on the Russell Wilson years. But Rob, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a blast talking about the 49ers beating Seattle, Deommodore Lenoir being locked in for this team for the next few years. Appreciate all of you in the live chat. You kept it popping. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but Rob's as well. But I have a feeling a lot of you probably have. Rob, you have reached 15,000 subscribers on YouTube this week, Gold Standard Network. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, what are you doing? And second, go do it now. But appreciate you, Rob, and the Gold Standard Network. Great content out there. So check it out if you haven't. Audio listeners, make sure to leave a rating, leave a review. Helps me out a ton. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Wednesday. Peace.